At TeamGantt, we talk an awful lot about the importance of always having a plan for every project, no matter how big or small. Part of having a solid project plan is understanding and agreeing on the scope of the project. Your project scope is so important to being able to give accurate estimates on timing and budget, and it also protects both the project team and your stakeholders by setting agreed upon expectations. Everyone wins. But then, the dreaded scope creep shows up. Scope creep is when a change is introduced to the project that negatively impacts the project scope. Regardless of which side of a project you've been on, you've likely encountered scope creep in some form or another. And if you've met up with it face to face, you've also probably felt the stress and confusion it can cause. Now, sometimes scope creep can happen due to completely unforeseen circumstances that no one could have predicted or planned for, like, say, having to completely work from home for more than a year because of a global pandemic. In those cases, it's pretty easy for the project team and stakeholders to work together to adjust or even completely redefine the project scope and kind of start fresh. But what about scope creep that shows up due to some party just not thinking things all the way through? Well, unfortunately, once you're in that position, it's kind of too late. You just have to do the best you can to make things work while not completely blowing up the project or the budget. The real trick is to keep scope creep from ever rearing its ugly head on your project to begin with. I'm going to go over a few ways to keep scope creep from ruining your day, but if you want a real deep dive, check out The Art and Science of Leading Projects, where we have a full class and resources on managing scope creep. First up, make sure you're aligned with your stakeholders. Remember, the name of the game is avoiding scope creep, and you can only do that when you and your stakeholders are on the same page about what your project is and isn't. This step is the most important and is a chance for you to be strategic with your stakeholders. If they have ideas that you know will blow up the scope of the project, now's your chance to steer them in a more appropriate direction. Next, stop me if you've heard this one before, always have a plan. It's a lot easier to avoid scope creep when you have a well thought out plan from the jump. Plan out every step of the project in detail to help ward off the scope creep monster. On that same note, make sure to talk about how changes will not just impact the scope of the project, but also the deadline and budget. There aren't many things that will get stakeholders' attention quite like dollar signs and late releases. Be clear about what a change will do to both of those things. In a best-case scenario, your stakeholder will see the resulting timeline and budget change and make the hard decision themselves. It's a win-win. Just say no. Just don't say it quite like that. Explain your reasoning and help them understand why you've come to this decision. And finally, possibly the most important thing you can do is to have a written process for handling change. No matter what, change is a constant on projects. It's something you're going to have to deal with, so it's best to get out in front of it so you're ready when it does come. Obviously, you don't want to be a PM or a project team who's always saying no to your stakeholders. That's not going to be a good long-term strategy for future business. But you also can't just let stakeholders come in all willy-nilly and make a bunch of major changes that affect things in ways they may not be in a position to fully understand. When you have a process for making changes in a project, it keeps everyone on the same page. The stakeholder can see right away what these changes will do to the timeline and budget and decide if they're worth it or not. If they are, then you add the changes, update the project plan, and keep on moving. If not, the idea is scrapped and you haven't lost any productivity. Or sometimes you can put that strategy hat from earlier in the video back on and help your stakeholder by giving them some options that will make them happy but also keep your scope intact. Maybe you can add this feature at a lower or no cost but with the push of the final release date. Or maybe you can have your dev team build the backend for that feature now for a small price adjustment while hitting your previously agreed upon launch date, and then the front end can be a smaller project a few months down the road. The possibilities are endless, but make sure it's all written down and agreed upon by everyone. Then you have a paper trail and a set of documents to go back to. Remember, the best way to keep scope creep at bay is to always be on the lookout for it so you can head it off before it becomes a problem. Take the time to put a process in place to maintain alignment with your stakeholders and make sure you're communicating often and clearly. And that's it for this video on scope creep. I want to know, how have you handled scope creep in the past? Has it gotten the best of you, or have you been able to keep it at bay? Let me know in the comments, and if this video has been helpful for you, I'd love it for you to return the favor and hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.